The modern Ace Attorney fandom is inextricable from shipping. That's not to say you can't enjoy Ace Attorney without shipping. People have since the dawn of time, and people will until the heat death of our universe. What I mean to say is, it's very difficult to exist in any AA fandom spaces without being inundated with shipping content. It makes up a massive percentage of the various forms of art that fans create. Even right now, if you Google search Ace Attorney fan art, a sizable chunk of the first page results are beautifully illustrated portraits of our dear friend Phoenix Wright being smooched. Among all the various ships in the Ace Attorney fandom, there reigns a clear winner in way of level of art created, of course. Naramitsu. Or Wrightworth for the uncultured. I've talked at length before in this channel about how Ace Attorney was kind of always in my peripheral growing up on the internet in the early 2000s. It was just a part of pop culture online. We still made lesser objection.lols even back in the day when we didn't really have the technology to do so. And in that same video where I talked about Ace Attorney's cultural presence, I talked about how I thought Naramitsu was the be-all end-all of the appeal of AA. So much so that I didn't think there were female characters in Ace Attorney at all, because all I ever saw was art of Miles Edgeworth, Investigations 3, how far can I shove my tongue in Wright's mouth before the truth about what he ate for lunch is revealed. Around the time I started seeing Ace Attorney stuff online, I was in a misogynistic Fujoshi bait fandom myself, and so I felt like I could call him when I saw him. I figured AA was a story about Miles and Phoenix, rivals and star-crossed lovers, and their everlasting goal to see how much sexual tension you can infuse into someone else's murder trial before it starts to get weird. And it is. It is about that. I just didn't think there was more to it than that. To a lot of people, there really isn't. In AA spaces, I certainly encounter people who are just there for Naramitsu and nothing else. And truly, why wouldn't they be? I mean this with my whole heart. I think Naramitsu might be the greatest love story of all time. I'm not being hyperbolic, I'm not being dramatic. I really do think that the way they show up for one another, speak to one another, save one another, and love one another is one of the most romantic portrayals of all the complexities of love that I have ever seen in any piece of media ever. And they're not even a canon couple, and Ace Attorney is not even a love story. It's some crazy miracle that Takumi accidentally ended up writing my modern day Romeo and Juliet. Naramitsu is, and I cannot stress this enough, exactly as wonderful as anyone who is insane about it will lead you to believe. But, I don't care. Maybe that's not entirely accurate. I do care about Naramitsu, but I care about it in the same way I care about any aspect of Ace Attorney. I am insane about it the same way I am insane about the storytelling, the music, the narrative, the tact. Everything about Ace Attorney makes me feel like I am bursting with autistic joy, and that includes pretty much any and all shipping. The whole time I was playing AA, I wasn't super expecting to ship much of anything hardcore. I was much more interested in the friendships that characters had, and if Naramitsu couldn't hold me, what the hell could? On AO3 right now, my fic website of choice and the most complete archive of written fanworks to this day, if you look into the 35,000 AA works on there and sort by ship, you will see that over 32% of them are about Miles and Phoenix together, either romantically or as friends. Right under that, of course, is the second most saturated AA ship, Clothier and Apollo, who make up a respectable 11%. Beneath them, the final pillar of the Yaoi Triforce, Ryunosuke and Kazuma, who clock in at 4%. Once again, I want to remind everyone that I did not know Ace Attorney had female characters in it until 2019. And why would I? Like many fandoms, the men take center stage. And I am happy those men are kissing each other. But the older I get and the more of a dyke I become, the less I am interested in the goings-on of made-up men, even if they are kissing. But the thing is, if you look far off into the horizon, into the sunset as it passes over the Ace Attorney fandom, past the Naramitsus, past the Klopalos, past even the Asoryus, deep onto the line of color where the purple of the dusk meets the blue of the coming night, you will see them. You will see FranMaya. So, I imagine you might be a little confused Well, you might be confused if you don't spend a lot of time in the shippier parts of the Ace Attorney community. Just hearing the ship name, you can probably guess who it features: Franziska von Karma and Maya Fey. But depending on who you are, you might second guess that seemingly obvious conclusion, because why on earth would anyone ship them? To set the scene for who these characters are and eventually make all of my points on why and how the ship exists, and because they are my favorite female characters in all of Ace Attorney, here's a little rundown of their place in the story. Maya Fey is from a remote village in the California mountains where she lives among a group of women who can channel the spirits of the dead. This is both a skill that can be studied and one that depends on genetics, and Maya happens to be the last living woman of the mainline family, i.e. the family that possesses the most potential for spiritual power, and as a result heads the clan. Initially, Maya wasn't meant to do this at all, but after the disappearance of her mother and the defection of her older sister, both of whom were murdered shortly thereafter, it fell upon Maya to take up the mantle of the head of her clan. After her sister's death, Maya herself was blamed for the murder, as she was the first one to find the corpse. Phoenix, who was her sister's protege in criminal law, not believing for a second that Maya did this, fought tooth and nail to defend her in court, and the two of them became fast friends. After this, Maya decided to work part-time at her sister's firm, which Phoenix inherited, and they are co-workers as well as best friends. Maya's his legal assistant, which mostly entails her following him around from crime scene to crime scene, stealing shit, breaking shit, and threatening him with bodily harm. Her other job is spirit channeling. She's in training for most of the series, but nonetheless is a decently powerful medium who often channels her sister's ghost so she can help out in court. She also takes clients back home in her village and channels other spirits for whatever people might need to speak to the dead for. Very cool, Maya. Personality-wise, Maya is very bubbly, silly, goofy, and crass, and this outwardly frivolous demeanor hides an incredibly clever, intelligent, and resilient young woman. Her key character trait is that she does not give a fuck and just says whatever. She really likes eating and fast food because the writers thought it would be hilarious for a spirit medium in traditional religious garb to be shoving a cheeseburger in her face at any given moment. And they are right. Franziska von Karma similarly comes from a long line of professionals who excel in their field. It can be assumed that her family has birthed more than a few legal legends, but given most focus is her father, a legendary prosecutor who hadn't lost a single case in 40 long years. Franziska, from a very young age, made the choice not only to follow in his footsteps, but to do it better than anyone who came before her. She's a genius, a prodigy who passed her bar exam when she was only 13 years old, and until we meet her at age 18 in the series, she had also never lost a single case. Franziska was born and raised in Germany. The text suggests she may have lived with her sort of foster brother Miles, who initially came from LA himself, but was taken under the wing of her father after being orphaned around age 10. Miles also had dreams of being a lawyer, and so he and Franziska sparked up a very intense rivalry that twisted itself into something a little more estranging as time went on. Despite him being 7 years her senior, Franziska is insistent on calling Miles her little brother. Honestly, Franziska goes through a lot of fuck shit, and I am incapable of summarizing it, but if you want to know her deal, here's a 2-hour-long video essay I made about her because I am legally insane. If I had to summarize her backstory, I'd just say that everyone she loves either betrays or leaves her in some way, shape, or form, and Franziska has been forced to be alone for a lot of her life. It's turned her into a very angry and cold person, but the game is sure to constantly peel back the curtain and remind you every so often that she is actually just a sad, hurt, scared little girl. Personality-wise, Franziska is obsessed with image and perfection. She takes great pride in her work and is incredible in courtroom walls, but the gap moe shines as soon as she leaves a courtroom and you realize she's incredibly awkward in social situations and doesn't have quite the silver tongue in that regard. She is your typical stuffy, mean business lady. She is icy and efficient, precise and domineering, cocky, and incredibly prone to explosive bouts of emotion. Not just anger, but usually anger. Because she is a small young woman in a male-dominated field, Franziska has taken to carrying a whip around as a tool to fight the misogyny she faces from her colleagues. The whip is constantly framed as a tool of control. She uses it to force people to take her seriously. She only whips men, and the rare woman who she feels really deserves it. Franziska and Maya are as opposite as can be from a surface perspective. If not for the hand of fate choosing to allow them to cross paths, there is a chance the two of them would never have a reason to speak to one another. And how they cross paths is, to me, one of the most amusing ways to meet someone who will eventually grow dear to you. They meet because Franziska is prosecuting Maya for murder. So, how did you meet your wife?
Well, it's actually a rather funny story. She had me on first-degree murder charges!
In canon, this is obviously a very big event. Ace Attorney is a game about court cases after all, and this is our introduction to Franziska as a prosecutor and as a character. Despite that though, I feel the need to remind everyone precisely how little Franziska and Maya interact throughout the whole thing. Maya obviously is in detention or in the defendant's chair for the duration of this case. Phoenix talks to her, and Phoenix talks to Franziska, but Franziska does not talk to Maya. I think a ton of people, both FranMaya shippers and people who feel neutral toward the ship, have completely forgotten just how little Franziska and Maya actually interact in canon. I'm going to lay out all their direct interactions across the two games they are in together for effect here, because I confidently believe I can do it in less than 1 minute. Okay, here we fucking go. During a brief recess on the tail end of Franziska's case against Maya, Franziska approaches her in the defendant lobby. Maya tells her to lay off on being such a bitch and reminds her of the fact that she is now an orphan. Franziska tells her to touch grass, and Maya laments their gap in maturity when they are the same age. During the second day's investigation in Case 2-3, Franziska approaches Maya and Phoenix at the crime scene. She whips Maya and starts taunting Phoenix about how she's going to kick his ass. Maya asks again why she's such a bitch and reiterates that being a bitch will not bring her dead dad back, and Franziska once again tells her to touch grass. This is where Franziska reveals to Maya that Miles is presumed dead, and where she reveals to the both of them that her motivation for revenge has nothing to do with her dad and everything to do with Miles. At the end of Case 3-5, Phoenix reveals to Maya that Franziska has been helping with the case. Maya thanks her. Shortly after that, Larry is looking for validation. He's a good artist, and he asks Franziska if she's happy with her portrait. Franziska insists that her beauty is not something mortal hands can capture, and Maya glares at her. As soon as Franziska notices Maya glaring, she takes back her previous statement and compliments Larry. While this is shown off screen in Game 3, ends with the main cast all going out to dinner together, so presumably Franziska and Maya spent some time together at Trabian eating the worst food that mankind has ever conceived. And time. That is it. Across 2 whole games, spanning dozens of hours. That is all we get of Franziska and Maya interacting. And yet it is the most popular girl-girl ship in the fandom. I can find references to it in the English-speaking fandom dating all the way back to 2007, and though it seems to be far less existent in the Japanese fanbase, I can still find art under the Mayome tag on Pixiv posted as early as 2008. Despite the lack of canon interaction, and despite the relative randomness of the ship, it has seemingly always existed quietly in the background, even in the days when it was just a rare pair. FranMaya exists in this weird sort of state of contradiction. I said that it is the most popular girl-girl ship in the fandom, and that is true, but that really isn't saying much for a number of reasons. For one, as previously mentioned, the Ace Attorney fandom has problems with women. This might give you, pun not intended, total whiplash if you go directly from the games to the fandom itself, because the Ace Attorney games love women. Women in Ace Attorney are written realistically and respectfully. Messy, nuanced people who are allowed to just be people instead of eye candy or archetypes. This is kicked off immediately with Mia Fey, who our main character shapes his entire life around embodying the love and spirit of. She haunts the whole narrative. But in the fandom, they're often ignored or watered down, these women, put into one-dimensional boxes and consigned to realms of fanon that don't justify their characters in the source material at all. The modern AA fandom does this to characters of every gender, but it is especially bad with women. Maya is reduced to silly burger girl. Franziska is nothing but a mean lesbian girl boss or a ruthless bitch. The list goes on, and I would give myself a headache if I thought about it all too hard. All this to say, the fandom does not highlight the women of Ace Attorney. The fandom certainly does not highlight the sapphic potential of the women of Ace Attorney. So when I say that FranMaya is the most popular girl-girl ship, I can't stress enough how little that matters. Right now on AO3, of the 35,000 Ace Attorney fanworks written, a meager 1.1 thousand of them are about FranMaya. But that number, in actuality, is even smaller, due to an absolutely wretched fandom concept that is sure to send a chill down the spine of anyone who's been in fandom long enough. Ugh. Fanlore defines pair the spares thusly. The term for leftover characters getting hooked up with whoever is left in a specific cast, because fandom, or sometimes the canon itself, doesn't allow space for singletons. Put simply, it is when a canon or a fandom cannot comprehend the idea of any characters being single. Every single character has to have a canon love interest by the end game, and a lot of the time what ends up happening is the few characters who don't have an obvious ship will get shipped with one another. I want to make it clear that I don't think this is what FranMaya is on principle, or what it started as. But it is something I am often thinking of when engaging with people who dissent from or actively dislike the ship. That number I gave mere seconds ago, 1.1 thousand. is a farce. In actuality, if you use the proper tools to sort through those 1,000 fics, you will find that the FranMaya in all of them is minimal. Franziska and Maya are not the focus. They are simply hovering around the male leads. And if you choose to filter out those fics about the male leads, the number drops to a measly 600. 600 fics where FranMaya is the focus, of 35,000 Ace Attorney works altogether. And you know what? That number is even fucking smaller for me because 45 of those fics are mine. I don't want to read that shit. I already read it a million times when I was writing. A while back on Tumblr, there was a meme going around where people were asked to express their unpopular Ace Attorney opinions. A non-zero amount of them said something to the effect of, I don't like or understand FranMaya. And while I am a huge proponent of just disliking anything you want with no deeper reasoning, this one actually kind of struck a chord in me and inspired me to examine what was being said and why I had such a strong reaction to it. It was the phrase unpopular opinion that got me. The mere idea that disliking FranMaya was an unpopular opinion. In case it wasn't abundantly clear by the length of this video and the fact that I just admitted to writing over 40 works about them, FranMaya is my one true pairing. It is my fucking lifeblood. And being a connoisseur of FranMaya, I constantly feel like I am starving looking for new art and writing about them. So hearing multiple people imply FranMaya's super popular, FranMaya's oversaturated, I'm going against the grain by not liking it, it was something that made me want to pace around my empty apartment, cracking my bullwhip for a good hour or so. Simply put, the conclusion I came to is that these people and I were both right, living in this weird paradox. Everyone ships FranMaya, but no one ships FranMaya. I want to state up front that I am not a person who condones flaming fanfiction or even leaving unwarranted concrete on an author's work. Genuinely, if you so much as correct a spelling error in my comments, I will block you on AO3, and I will not feel a shred of remorse as I do so. I want to make it abundantly clear, fanfiction is free. People are writing whole-length novels and beautiful short stories, and they are sharing it with people online simply because they love something so much they cannot contain it. For free. When I don't like a fanfiction, the author never hears a word of it, and I do nothing more than click off the page and think, not for me. What the fuck else am I gonna do? Ask for the money back that I didn't fucking pay? I am not here to shit on fanfiction, but I am here to broadly examine how it ties into my main point here, and so I shall. In most fanfiction, as I previously stated, FranMaya are indeed spares being paired. There is a veritable cavalcade of unfortunate tropes that tend to occur in succession with this. A lot of the time, for reasons I absolutely cannot comprehend, Franziska and Maya are written as hyper-competent. That is to say, they're emotionally aware enough to not only understand that they have feelings for one another, but act upon those feelings in emotionally mature ways. They're often the first couple to get together because of this, speed-running the dating process so that they can serve their real function in the story, wingmanning for Narumitsu, who are love-struck bumbling idiots who cannot untangle or comprehend the first thing about confessing their love to one another. And when people say they dislike FranMaya, I often wonder which version of FranMaya they dislike. Is it the version written by people who actually write works that feature FranMaya as the main ship? Or is it these works that are about anything but, where FranMaya are not characters, but purely decorative sapphics who hang around in the background and look pretty? Because when you filter out Narumitsu entirely, and train your sights on fan works that are about just the girls, you will notice the quality jumps immediately. Franziska and Maya are not just ornaments to hang in the peripheral of our male leads, but wholly realized people with hopes and dreams and traumas and pain and conflict. They clash, they bump gums, and yes, sometimes they just kiss and hold hands with little fights. But the key is, the people who are actually writing them are writing them. Those people are exploring what this purely hypothetical relationship would actually look like, with what little we are given in canon. And now, with that preamble done, I too would like to share that world with you. In my Francisca analysis, I talked about how the Ace Attorney games masterfully do narrative foiling. I don't think I can say it better than I did in that video, so I'm legit just going to play the clip for you here. One thing AA does really well is setting up parallels and narrative foils. For instance, we know that Phoenix is the foil to Miles. Phoenix is bright-eyed, determined, open-hearted, and a bit of a mess of a man. Miles is aloof, anxious, reserved, and suspicious, and incredibly elegant and well put together, at least in court. A lot of people stop there, but don't realize that everyone around them are parallels and foils of their own. Like Mia, for instance, Phoenix's mentor in life and in law. Her direct parallel is Manfred, who is the same thing to Miles. Mia has a younger sister, Maya, who Phoenix forges a deep friendship with and more or less takes in as family of his own. Opposite to Maya is Francisca, Manfred's daughter, who is similarly precious to Miles. Named for the way that one would place jewelry on a piece of foil to highlight its shine. A narrative foil is meant to contrast with the character they are placed up against, and in turn highlight their traits twofold. By definition, narrative foils are meant to be very different from each other, but in order to properly place them on the same pedestal, they need to have something in common that will get the person experiencing the story to fundamentally associate them despite that contrast. Francisca and Maya are emblematic of this. Not only are their places in the story almost perfectly paralleled, but so are their backstories. They are both two young women who are carrying the impossible weight of their respective family legacies on their backs. Maya with the Holkerine School of Channeling, and Francisca with the legendary reputation of the name Von Karma. Both of them are orphans. Maya has both an absent mother and father. Francisca's father is put on death row shortly before her introduction, and we see neither hide nor hair of her mom in any piece of canon. And both of them are more or less completely alone, save for their respective surrogate brothers, Miles and Phoenix. No one is more aware of these facts than Maya and Francisca themselves, because the heart of FranMaya exists not in how they talk to one another, but how they talk about one another. Completely opposite of each other, Francisca and Maya both express this sort of fixation on each other. Specifically, it's a fixation on how the other handles their very similar circumstances. Maya is the first one to speak on this. Prompted by nothing, before court on the second day of case 2-2, Maya brings up that she found out Francisca and her are the same age. It's a pretty consistent thing that Maya's high self-confidence hides incredibly low self-esteem, and this fact about Francisca is immediately something she can't help but draw like a knife on herself. Francisca and her are the same age, dealing with so many of the same problems, but Francisca is grown up and independent and making a name for herself all alone in a foreign country. And Maya, by her own admission, is just an immature little kid, constantly shirking her responsibilities. And what's especially curious is Francisca feels the exact opposite about that comparison. At the end of Game 3, Maya has been put through the ringer. Traumatic event after traumatic event. She's just watched her mother get murdered in front of her own eyes and then been forced to channel her evil cousin for days, putting an incredible strain on her body and mind. She's bubbly as ever, though, acting exactly like her ridiculous, childish self. Francisca, in a rare moment of vulnerability, expresses that she doesn't understand how Maya is able to do that. Remain bright-eyed and fun-loving when the world seems insistent on turning her hard. Francisca is not a person who says anything of the emotional variety directly. Parsing meaning and intent from her statements requires a much more analytical eye. The implication in this one is, of course, look at her, keeping that childish wonder in her heart despite everything. How does she make it look so easy? Why can't I do that? This fixation they have on each other is so subtly written. Its mastery honestly kind of astounds me to this day. It's blink and you'll miss it, but a well thought out character flourish nonetheless. These are the most obvious on the nose moments, but it's in other places too. If you present Francisca's profile to Maya at any point in Game 2, she'll outright say that she finds the idea of being Francisca's friend appealing. Maya's a social butterfly, especially around girls her age. Her isolated upbringing seemingly fostering in her a deep desire to connect with other people who she sees as having more normal, typical lives. Francisca is no exception, and Maya says that the only thing holding her back is that Francisca is not a particularly agreeable individual. To me, this idea flows throughout Game 2, this hypothetical connection that Maya and Francisca can't seem to make, but clearly think about whenever they think of each other. In Case 3-5, when Francisca and Phoenix are investigating around Hazakura, they come upon Pearl, who has been missing all night. Francisca has a soft spot for little girls, and so she tries to play herself off as the noble hero who's come to rescue a scared young Pearl. But Pearl absolutely thrashes her, marking her not as a hero, but as the prosecutor who was cruel and mean and tried to get her cousin thrown in jail a year ago. Francisca has a notable reaction to this. One could say that this reaction stems from being viewed as the villain rather than the hero of justice she wants to believe she is. You could also say that it stings to hear she was cruel to Maya in particular. It's not out of character to assume that Francisca too is fascinated by Maya and wants to be closer to her. Personally, I think it's a little bit of both. It stings to hear that this innocent young girl, who in Francisca's eyes can do no wrong, has decided she is the bad guy. And it probably hurts extra that it's in matters of one Maya Fey, who Francisca finds herself inexplicably drawn to. It's not contrived to assume that Francisca also seeks connection with girls her age, an antisocial rich kid upbringing that saw her more interested in speedrunning law classes than making friends. What matters especially is what Francisca does after Pearl calls her out. For plot reasons, Maya has been quite literally fridged for most of this case. Phoenix and the player as well are led to believe that Maya is trapped inside the inner temple of Hazakura training hall, where it is below freezing and prone to cave-ins. The doors are sealed shut by magical padlocks, the kind that can't be sawed through or cut in any other manner. The only way to undo them is to sit there and try every possible combination on every single lock until all 5 of them fall to the floor. At this point, Francisca has been awake for over 24 hours straight. She is no longer obligated to be involved in this case, as she was only filling in as acting prosecutor and the actual prosecutor has returned. Francisca von Karma has no reason to stay on top of this freezing mountain, sleep deprived as can possibly be, and give any more of her precious time or her ever-sharp mind. If she wanted to, she could hop on her private jet and fly back to Germany right now and get some much-needed rest. But that is not what she does. Francisca stays. Not only does she stay, she demands that she be the one to sit there and figure out those trick locks. And that is exactly what she does. She pulls an all-nighter, stays awake for over 40 hours, and sits there in the freezing cold doing this horribly menial, horribly grating task, all for the purpose of saving Maya. I want to say outright that I really dislike when people boil this scene down to just FranMaya, and so I have a lot of conflict mentioning it in a video about that exact topic. The fact of the matter is, Francisca would have done that for anyone in the right circumstances. Francisca has a strong sense of justice, and her key trait, in my opinion, is protectiveness. I think that decision of hers had less to do with Maya and more to do with Francisca herself. But I also can't help but think that she might not have done so personally if it weren't Maya allegedly in there. I can't help but wonder if she might not have gotten someone else to do it under her command or in her stead. I feel as though Pearl's words traveled right to her very core and shook up something she'd regretted about herself and wanted to do right by. Genuinely, I don't feel like Francisca stayed in the inner temple all night because she had romantic feelings for Maya, but I do think she did it because she felt indebted to Maya. I think she did it because once upon a time she had told the world that Maya was a murderer and followed through on that conviction with a ruthless von Karma dedication. And she was, of course, the worst thing a von Karma can ever fathom to be. Wrong. Pearl was right. Francisca is mean because she is scared, and in wearing that fearsome demeanor like a shield, she hurt someone innocent who didn't deserve it. Not only that, she hurt someone who might have conceivably shown interest in being her first real friend. All she can do from then on is try to fix all that by being better. Staying in the inner temple like that, at her own detriment and for no personal benefit, screams it loud and clear. I will set things right. I will show you who I really am. One thing I love about Francisca is that she never verbally apologizes or expresses regret for the things she's done in the past. She doesn't feel the need to cling to any regret she might feel because she cannot feasibly undo what's happened, and thus there is no productive thought in dwelling upon it. Francisca's apologies all come in the form of silently changed behavior. Behavior we are again meant to glean ourselves as players analyzing the game. To show that Francisca is ready to have a less adversarial relationship with Phoenix, she watches over him while he's sick and pushing himself too hard. To show that she wants to keep fighting beside Miles, she flies out to America in the dead of night without a second thought to pay him a favor. To show that she is more than just her father's daughter, she works every day to align the name von Karma with truth and justice, rather than just the ruthless pursuit of winning. And to show that she wants to be more than just the wicked force who tried to put Maya Fey in jail, she puts herself through a grueling test of endurance, just to see Maya safe and well. To Francisca, this is a much more efficient way of atoning for any ill action she's taken in the past. She cannot change what she has done, and so she does not cling to the shame of it. She simply strives to be better, and if the people she stepped on choose to see it and forgive her, then everyone benefits in the end. So, like I said, while I do dislike when people say things like, "Oh my god, girls, is it gay to stay up all night on doing spirit puzzles for the cute medium trapped in Xena Temple?" and find it incredibly reductive, I simultaneously find it very significant that it was Maya in there. I can't say for certain whether I think Francisca's own hands would have been fiddling with those locks if not for Maya's potential involvement, and Pearl's perception of Francisca being directly connected to Maya's previous trial. At the end of this game, there is a bit of dialogue I find ever so curious. When the trial finally ends, Maya takes note of Miles and Francisca waiting for them all in the defendant lobby. Phoenix tells her that the two of them flew out from Europe to help with the case, and Maya thanks them. But there is such a gem in how she addresses them here. She calls Edgeworth Mr. Edgeworth, which is commonplace. She usually always either calls him just Edgeworth or formally with the Mr. in front. But then she goes to address Francisca, who she has always called Von Karma or Miss Von Karma in the past. Maya seems to think for a moment, stumbling over what she wants to say, and calls her Francisca. Just the first name. Just Francisca. And to me, this single dialogue choice, the stutter, the pause, the forethought, especially in someone like Maya, who rarely stops to think before she talks. This, to me, speaks volumes about the bud of their relationship and what it may someday flower into. It's especially striking in contrast to her being more formal with Miles, who she knows much more intimately and is arguably much closer with. At this point, we know that Maya is fixated on Francisca. We know that she has, even just jokingly, considered the possibility of being Francisca's friend. We know that the thing that stopped Maya from attempting to befriend Francisca is that Francisca is mean and nasty and cruel to the people Maya loves. And now that one single barrier has shattered. Francisca hopped on a 15-hour flight to California to assist Maya and everyone she adores, and stayed until the bitter end. We watch it happen in slow motion here. That opportunity Maya had considered briefly, fleetingly, to be genuine friends with Francisca. And she extends that olive branch ever so quietly, its wood twisting shyly into the shape of a first name. Side note, Larry then immediately crashes into the scene and asks if there's room in the group hug for him, which I think low-key implies that everyone, including the awkward, super not touchy prosecutor siblings, were all hugging before he arrived. So that's cute. It's not relevant to FranMaya. Or maybe it is, whatever. Right after this moment, Larry starts saying a lot of really self-deprecating stuff, and it's stuff that sounds nigh identical to some of the feelings Maya has voiced feeling about herself. It's no wonder then that Maya is the person to jump in and console Larry, reassuring him of his worth, his talent, and his importance not only to other people, but to the universe. She bullies Phoenix and Miles into giving Larry some weak-willed compliments, but when Larry looks for praise from Francisca, she is no nonsense as usual and tells him the truth. And genuinely, I struggle sometimes to believe this next part really happened in canon. Maya glares at Francisca, wordlessly scolds her, says entirely with her eyes, "Francisca Von Karma, you better be nice to that idiot right now." And Francisca, Ice Queen Supreme, whip-wielding menace, taker of no prisoners, will of iron and fire, pauses for a moment when she notices Maya glaring, and then purposely banks her sharp tongue and gives Larry fucking Butts a genuine compliment. Francisca looks at Maya's olive branch with reverence, and she quietly takes it in her hands. Violent hands. Hands that strike and punish and fight. And she holds it as though it is precious glass. This is Francisca's reply to Maya's shy little hello again. Francisca, who does not bend beneath the will of anything other than herself. She sees Maya demanding something so entirely small from her, and Francisca bends. Francisca folds. And she folds for Maya. And this is when Franziska talks about how Maya's response to trauma and pain confuses and fascinates her. I want to circle back on that because I think this aspect of them is quite literally the crux of their relationship. Both their teased friendship here at the end of the trilogy and the potential of shipping them with one another romantically. Maya and Franziska are two characters who have both been put through innumerable traumatic events in their life, and both of them come from an incredibly atypical upbringing that has clearly manifested in some pretty significant maladaptive coping behaviors. When Maya's mother left Khura'in, every passing year seemed to put more and more distance between her mother ever coming back to head the clan. Thus, the responsibility fell on Mia, who we can see in canon is Maya's best friend. Early on, Maya had to reckon with the idea that she may one day lose Mia too, because that is just the sort of thing that the Khura'in school does to people. Fae women are all either victims or perpetrators, and Maya had to watch countless relationships fall to ashes because of this curse. Knowing Mia, she likely did everything in her power to keep Maya safe from this truth. But there's only so much a young girl, even a big sister, can do. And one day, Mia had to make a very difficult choice. Stay in Khura'in and hope one day Misty returned to be its master, or seize her own destiny and find Misty herself. This, of course, came at the expense of Maya's own childhood. I'm going to be real, I fucking hate it when people have stupid, edgy takes on this choice. The anime, as always, did it best, with Mia giving Maya the best day ever, telling her the impossible weight of the circumstances at hand, and asking her, with the full expectation that she may refuse, if she would be willing to become the head of the clan. And Maya, true to her nature, shrugging as though it is nothing. This is one of the best fucking moments in the Ace Attorney anime. It's true to Maya's character, it's true to Mia's character, and it's true to the love they show for one another in every single canon they share together. There was not meant to be a winner in this situation. They are two young girls born into horrible circumstances, but they loved each other with all they were. And that love mattered. At a very young age, Maya was forced to reckon with all that pressure on her shoulders. The world told her she needed to grow up, and fast. In response to this, Maya defiantly clung to her own immaturity. In canon, Maya is a creature of hedonism and childish pleasures, the exact opposite of an acolyte meant to free their mind of those earthly pleasures, the exact opposite of a regal and polite noblewoman heading a spiritual commune in the mountains. She has a voracious appetite, a bad attitude, and loves watching tokusatsu for children. To cope with the feeling of having no control over her life, the feeling of having to grow up too fast, Maya clings to whatever childish joys she possibly can. She pushes her pain and her problems deep down into the furthest reaches of her mind, and she plasters a smile on her face in its place. On the other side of the coin, there is Franziska. We know little of Franziska's childhood. We're given almost nothing in canon, other than that Franziska started practicing law when she was 13. If you're new here, I do not think her father abused her or forced her to become a prosecutor, and frankly, I think that most people who do are just bad at media analysis. They understand that Franziska is a very deep character with a lot going on in her head and heart, but they struggle to analyze the why and how and just think, hey, her dad was kind of an abrasive dick, and he reminds me of my shitty dad. Whatever, I guess he's abusive. And they leave it at that. In my opinion, this is why you much more scarcely see people analyzing all the very real traumatic stuff that happens to Franziska in canon. And instead, they just fill in these blanks in her backstory with something they unfortunately can probably relate more to than being a victim of gun violence or a sibling potentially killing themselves. Sticking to the purely canon facts, and not uninspired fan conjecture. What we do know about Franziska is that whether her father foisted the burden of prosecuting on her, or Franziska herself chose to follow in his footsteps out of admiration, at some point, the Von Karma name began to feel less like wings and more like shackles. She was put under the heaviest scrutiny, held to the highest standard, and began to believe in time that she was to be perfect, or she was to be nothing. Personally, I think Manfred von Karma's hand in this is not that he demanded this behavior, but that he modeled it. And Franziska, of course, loved him more than anything, and wanted to be just like him someday. Like Maya, Franziska carries immeasurable pressure on her shoulders. Not only is she expected to never falter or stumble, but she is expected to be inhumanly thorough in everything she does. She refuses to allow herself any imperfections or blemishes, simply because she is a Von Karma. On top of that, she is a small young woman in a male-dominated field, constantly talked down to and treated like a child playing games by a great many of her peers. She is treated this way despite her genius. Where Maya leans into being childish to make up for the childhood that was robbed of her, Franziska doubles down hard in revoking that childhood, both in the hopes that she will be taken seriously and also so that she does not have time to stop and grieve it as it rots. Maya goes with the flow, stops to smell the roses, shirks work and training because slacking off and feeling good help her forget that she has no control over her life. Francisca obsesses over keeping everything around her in a chokehold. She refuses to take on any burden without mastering it totally and completely, and projects a falsely mature image in an attempt to control whatever she possibly can. Both of them, at their core, are simply scared little girls with no control over their lives. So yes, FranMaya exists purely as a hypothetical, but what a wonderful hypothetical it is, given what we know about them, and what we know about what they see in one another. Obviously, I just talked a lot about what they have in common and how they deal with those commonalities in completely different ways. But what's most interesting of all to me is not the contrast, but what that contrast offers the both of them, how they can help each other heal, how they can learn from one another. To me, the crux of any relationship is collaboration. It's teaching. My partner should be able to teach me things, make me see the world from perspectives I never considered before. I hope, of course, to do the same for her. The reason I love personally is to find a person who helps me to be my best self. And FranMaya are so emblematic of this for me that the mere thought of their love makes me insane. One thing people love to just ignore about Maya Fey is how much she struggles with self-image and especially self-worth. This is front and center in Turnabout Goodbyes, where Maya's fickle grasp on her ability to channel gets tied somewhere along the way with her own self-worth in her head. Maya begins to believe that she's useless to Phoenix and that he only keeps her around because of her ability to channel her dead sister. Naturally then, when Maya's powers begin to weaken, she begins to panic and spiral into a self-loathing depression, fearing what will happen if she can't call Mia. She begins to obsess over training in an attempt to gain a better handle on things, but it's futile, and the stakes are higher than ever, and Phoenix is too wrapped up in everything to realize that the little comments he's making here and there about how he wishes Mia was around are really getting under Maya's skin. At her lowest point, Maya outright expresses very real suicidal ideation, lamenting that the villain of this case did not end up killing her, because she believes the world would be a better place if she were dead. Though the case ends with Maya being the most crucial factor in saving the day, mental health issues like that are obviously not fixed so easily. She continues to drop comments here and there that reinforce that she feels inferior in some way, or simply not good enough to bother being kept around. Maya doesn't like herself. She sees herself as disposable, and only fights the way she does because she doesn't want to give up on the people who love her, or risk breaking their hearts in any way. So what can Francisca give to her? Self-love. Self-confidence, self-assurance. Francisca is an expert on worshipping herself. Francisca will be the first to tell you she is smart and beautiful and talented and dedicated. She is smug and self-obsessed and knows her own worth and will tell everyone in the world of it. And for Francisca to see someone as strong and clever and wondrous as Maya Fey talking down on herself, she would not stand for it, especially when Maya is often the first to champion for others who are feeling down on themselves. Francisca would call out her hypocrisy, make Maya reckon with the reason why she cannot extend that same courtesy to herself. Francisca would defend Maya's honor, even if it meant fighting Maya's own foolish inner voice. She would remind Maya time and time again of the 15-year-old cold case she solved, of the way she managed to navigate being kidnapped and held for ransom, of the tenacity she exhibited that night on Hazakura. She would tell Maya of how much levity she brings to even the hardest of situations, how brave Maya is to still laugh and smile when the world has turned its back on her time and time again, and how the people in Maya's life love and appreciate her not for what she can offer, but simply because she is Maya. Bubbly, bright, beautiful Maya. And what can Maya give to Francisca? Well, Francisca's a serial workaholic, a ruthless businesswoman who refuses to leave any stone unturned, works more than she eats or breathes or sleeps, and was fully ready to prosecute with her shoulder pumped full of lead. Francisca has admitted that she does not believe anything in the world is more important than her work as a prosecutor. If she's anything like her father in this matter, Francisca more than likely does not take sick days or vacations. She is high-strung, stuffy, tight-laced, and no-nonsense, always thinking about her next case and leaving no room to stop and process anything else. We, of course, know why this is. When someone does force her to slow down and reflect on everything for even a few minutes, she completely breaks under the weight of it all. Francisca does not know how to relax or have fun. But Maya? Maya's a pro at that. Maya was put on Earth to have fun and be silly. If anyone would be able to get Franziska von Karma to stop working for a day, it would be Maya Fey. Roping her into dates, taking her to street fairs and toku shows, maybe even bringing Franziska somewhere she can nerd out, like botanical gardens or historical law libraries. Not only that, but she would teach Franziska to let loose and be silly with her. We know that Franziska has a mischievous spirit hiding beneath that icy exterior, and I don't think there's anyone better suited to pulling it out of her than Maya. One of my favorite genres of FranMaya fan art is pieces where Maya makes Franziska laugh. Bonus points, of course, if everyone bearing witness to that laugh is shocked and delighted to hear it. Maximum bonus points if Maya hears Franziska laugh and immediately irrevocably falls in love right then and there. So Franziska teaches Maya to be more secure in herself and seize her own destiny. And Maya teaches Franziska to slow down, let loose, and have fun. We're right back to those traits they initially admired in one another. Franziska helps Maya remember that she is a competent adult. Maya helps Franziska remember that she is a teenage girl who's allowed to have fun. There in the middle, they equalize and realize that they do not have to be one or the other. All of this, just like them, can exist in lovingly imperfect harmony. There is, of course, a lot to admire on the surface level, too. I've been talking a lot about the deeper reaches of their respective psyches here, but even ignoring all of that, you cannot deny that the dynamic is just delightful to think about. Maya's ADHD-riddled ramblings, all giggles and jokes and devious smiles, up against Franziska's autistic, aggressively German rigidity and sternness. Imagining them existing in any space with one another is really just a delight. They're out on a burger date and Maya's getting mustard all over her face while Franziska meticulously prods at her fries with a fork. They go for a lakeside stroll, and Franziska's attempts to fish Maya out of the water only lead to her getting pulled in fully clothed. The two of them see a movie, and Franziska's critiquing plot holes and contrivances while Maya sits there talking about how sexy the lady villain is. At no point are they ever on the same page about anything, and yet they are obsessed with one another all the same. I picture them in these wild scenarios where they clash in every conceivable way, but crucially, they are always smiling at one another despite it. Silly X-Mad is a tried and true ship dynamic when it comes to male-male pairings, and maybe I've just been unlucky, but I so rarely see it with girls, too. Another wonderful thing to think about with regards to FranMaya isn't just how they interact with one another, but how they interact with all the people important to themselves and one another. Obviously, this can exist without the ship, but I just think it's so much funnier in the context of a romantic relationship. I love to think about Miles and Phoenix getting together for tea and gossiping privately about their weird girls flirting with one another nonstop. Do you think they know that's what it is? Placing bets on when and how and if they're going to get together. If Franziska is even capable of understanding the concept of romance. I love thinking about Maya just being unabashedly forward with how much she wants to make out with Franziska loudly in Phoenix's ear while he covers them up and screams, "Shut up, shut up, shut up" at her until she stops. I love thinking about Maya and Miles at their toku marathons, Maya very genuinely asking him if he thinks she has a chance with his sister. I love thinking about Franziska, repressed Victorian gentleman in a modern day lawyer lady's body, reluctantly asking for Phoenix's blessing, Pearl's blessing, Mia's blessing. Most importantly of all, I like to think about that time Manfred von Karma fucking tased Maya Fey, because Maya Fey is rude, and Maya Fey, if not for the confines of being stuck inside a T-rated game, would have very much had the dirtiest mouth imaginable. And my favorite thing to think about is Maya Fey writhing on the ground with the weight of 600,000 volts in her system, nails white knuckle on Manfred's $500 velvet slacks, screaming through the pain with little intent but passionate fury, "I'm gonna fuck your daughter!" Absolute non sequitur. Until it is not. Mutual pining is always beloved. While I love reading and writing established FranMaya, there's also just something so delightful about watching how they fall in love too. Obviously, all interpretations of the text are entirely valid. I'd be a massive hypocrite if I suggested otherwise. But in terms of personal preference, I very strongly disagree with people who write Franziska von Karma as a smooth-tongued, sly-eyed lady killer dom. I think that people who tend toward that interpretation haven't really bothered to think much harder about Franziska. as they're announcing to the world that they have completely fallen for her facade. Franziska is not silver-tongued anywhere but in court, where she's autistic enough about the subject matter to effortlessly lash the whole courtroom both verbally and literally. Franziska struggles to get through most social interactions without violence or threats, shouts more than she speaks, is easily rendered silent by the criticism of a 9-year-old, and is very bad at hiding how flustered she gets. She is, and I mean this so affectionately, kind of a fucking loser. The shallow tendency that fandom has nowadays to denote any badass or competent woman as a girl boss and completely ignore the flaws or cracks in their demeanor that make them endearing is honestly a fucking disease. Franziska is both a genius and a fucking wreck. These things coexist. Watch my goddamn Franziska video. No, if we're going to make someone a flirtatious lady killer in this ship, it's going to be Maya. Maya is incredibly forward, especially with women. If you want to read her fixation on girls her age as romantic curiosity rather than just seeking to connect platonically, Maya is flirty as fuck. She's all up on Penny, she's all up on Regina, she's out here one step away from stealing Mask Damask's fucking wife. Maya, to me, fully radiates the energy that she could pull any girl she wants, and she knows it. This is another reason why thinking about them in concept alone just makes me lose my fucking mind. To me, the dynamic is this.
The thing you don't get about me is I'm a fucking stud, Nick. I could wrap any girl in this courthouse around my finger, no problem. You should be taking notes.
You want to test that theory?
You think about these two together, and at no point does it make any sense for the mean, nasty, sharp-tongued whip wielder to be the one wearing the pants here. Literally in no scenario does it make any sense. It's so fucking funny. Maya's always the one loudly flirting and making the first move and seizing the opportunity, and Franziska's a sheltered, stuffy, blushing mess while this mountain gremlin who has eaten more than a few chicken nuggets off the floor completely sweeps her off her feet. And Maya's the only person in the world who can do this. Literally no one else can do this to Franziska. It doesn't work unless it's Maya, and that is so fucking funny to me. She whipped Franziska. She whipped Franziska. She whipped her. Does anyone else think this is fucking hysterical? To me, there is nothing cuter than Maya, who by all means thinks Franziska is out of her league, but is still recklessly courageous enough to try, blustering the pants off of Franziska, turning Franziska into a blushing, sputtering mess who has no idea, 1, how to respond properly to being pursued romantically, and 2, why she is so easily taken by Maya Fey. On anyone else, Maya's traits would be grating, something Franziska would chase away with venom and leather. For some reason, though, she loves it on Maya, finds herself endlessly fascinated by the strange little acolyte with the weirdly smooth tongue. And even if Maya isn't the lesbian Casanova I personally envision her as, even if she herself is stumbling over pickup lines and doing an absolute dog shit job at flirting with the hot prosecutor who tried to jail her that one time, something tells me that too would just charm Franziska ever more. More than anything, Maya Fey not being scared of Franziska in the slightest is honestly like 78% of the ship to me. It's hopeless projection, but it's just the pinnacle of love. To be fearsome and powerful and to make your enemies tremble beneath your heel, but then there's just 1 or 2 motherfuckers that don't give a shit. They either know you're all bark or no bite, or they have felt the bite and simply do not care. It's a nibble to them. The idea of Franziska von Karma being like, how dare you love me? How dare you look after me? If you coddle me with your saccharine sentiments, I'll bite your fucking fingers off! And Maya's just like, yeah, sure, Franzi. Start biting. She loves her more than she fears her. And if Franziska's going to be huffy about being looked after, well, Maya would rather an irritated Franziska than an unhealthy or underloved one. That's peak romance to me. That's everything to me. I haven't played the sequel trilogy, so when I plot out their relationship in the 7-year gap, it's just kind of vaguely somewhere in there with little regard to what's actually happening in the main plot. But genuinely, I do think it started right where we leave off in the trilogy. At Trebian that night, at some point, Maya demanded Franziska's number, and Franziska was tired enough, or brave enough, or genuinely interested enough to give it to her. Wherever they went from then on, I think Maya was incessantly texting her. Things about her day, funny stories about Phoenix doing stupid shit, memes that reminded her of Franziska. This incessance, again, is something that would cause Franziska to simply block the number of anyone else. But on Maya, she can't help but feel compelled, every so often, to send a perfectly grammatically correct message back. And the rest, as they say, is history. People ship for all reasons. Despite what weird Puritans who somehow found an internet connection will tell you, more often than not, shipping really is not that deep. We're all just playing with dolls. We're making them kiss. For the most part, there isn't much else to it than that. Once upon a time, though, an internet denizen who I have long since forgotten the username of proposed a theory that I believe does hold water. When it comes to shipping, there will often be a ship you are particularly insane about. Maybe it's your OTP, maybe it is not. But either way, it hits different. And the reason for that is simple. One half of the ship is the character you relate to the most. The other half of the ship is the character you either think is hottest or think could fix you. Congratulations, YouTube watcher! We have reached the point in the video where I talk about how my Ace Attorney ship is a reflection of myself and my desires. Get used to this because it isn't changing. We do personal, sincere, tooth-rottingly earnest media analysis around here. You're welcome. So I am openly fiction-kin on this channel, and I don't intend to be shy or make any attempt to appeal to normies about it. I am kin with women who are difficult, often, and I also relate to women who are difficult too. Despite what TikTok is trying to tell you, these are two different concepts, but for me they just happen to align. I don't always relate to my kin types, but when it comes to abrasive women especially, I always do. A lot of people try to give me like kin recs or whatever the fuck, and they'll throw these women at me who are just like domineering and mean and nasty. What a lot of people miss there is that I do not relate to these women because they are any of those things. I relate to these women because they love and hate and feel fiercely. Their emotions are not things they feel, but things they become. And like, just as a rule, people hate women, so when they feel anything, they're branded as angry. Love, though, is the key. Love that gets twisted and overflows and hurts and morphs into anger. Love and tenacity and devotion, left to sit out in the sun too long. When you look at who I ship my kin types with, it's people who are not only patient, but it's people who love them because of all this and not in spite of it. That's my dream, obviously, to have people who just like me because they view my abrasion as what it actually is, a protective spirit, both toward myself and others. In life, there is a Venn diagram of those that I fall for. This patience and adoration of my authentic self is on one side. The other circle is labeled, bluntly, just the goofiest, silliest motherfucker. In the center, I find my dream, whether it be romantic or platonic. In the center there is where all my most important loves live. When I think back on all the people I've fallen hardest for, all the people I've gone a little insane about, they exist in that center. They hold me through an angry, screaming episode, and they dry my tears by making me laugh so hard I feel like my body is splintering. Those people are my home, my heart, my sanctuary. I look for them in ships. But it's never quite right. When the goofy one is too goofy, the angry one's a little too angry. A balancing of things, perhaps. I need them to both be a little silly. I need them to both be vibrant things. I need them to make each other better, stronger. And I need them to be deeper than just the angry one and the happy one. The closest I got for ages was hilariously rocket shipping. It was the truest thing I had to my own experiences. And I have been insane about that ship for years, literal decades. A lot of you follow me for Ace Attorney, so you probably don't know this, but I used to 100% be a Pokemon account on every social media platform. I legally changed my name to Rocket. That's my name. That's not like a YouTube, like, that's like my real actual name. And it's because of these idiots and their cat. This was my OTP to end all OTPs. The ship that I shipped hardest for most of my life. They are everything to me. And they have been since I was in diapers. But the two of them are still portrayed as a man and a woman in many regards and in many fanworks. And while I tend to prefer male-female ships in fiction solely because they're exotic and exciting to my sapphic self, that small disconnect that drew me to them meant that I could never truly project entirely. It is my love story still, but there is that one small barrier. Fucking enter FranMaya. It's everything. It's everything I've been searching for forever, and it's two women. It's two women who love each other and who make each other better and who are messy and complicated and traumatized and downright giddy to untangle that all together. Franziska von Karma is a being made of pure love and protective instinct, and it all fizzles and screams and alchemizes itself into thunderous anger and spat out insults. And no one who loves her gives a shit, because everyone who loves her sees right through to her soul and knows that love is worth it. Maya Fey is this ray of sunshine who has seen so much hardship but refuses to ever stop smiling even when she feels like she's being broken apart. She remains forward-facing and optimistic and truly embodies the spirit of never giving up until the very end. She is bubbly and bright and tenacious and loud and obnoxious and perfect. She is perfect to me. Franziska is stuffy and high-strung and a workaholic and lacking in social skills. Maya is loose and laid back and fun-loving and a social butterfly despite her own sheltered lifestyle. Maya pulls Franziska out of this headspace where she's too concerned with her image and reputation to live her life. Maya forces her to live just by proximity. Maya's self-worth is utter garbage. She'll stand up for anyone but herself. Franziska teaches her to love herself and know her worth. Franziska is the voice in Maya's head that tells her to fight for herself as much as she fights for others. They complete one another. They challenge one another. They help one another grow. Maya Fey is my dream girl. I can't believe she's just been out there in this visual novel since like 2003, and I never heard about her until a few years ago. If you're gonna custom tailor a girl for me to have a crush on, it'd be Maya Fey. If you look at my dating history and try to assign every single girl in there a fictional character, you will in fact find that they are all just Maya Fey. Sometimes I'm on call with my friends telling some random story about a girlfriend of the past, and the whole voice chat will sputter to a stop so that everyone can acknowledge the fact that I was dating Maya Fey. I cannot stress enough how often this happens in real life. It's just like, It's everything I've ever wanted in a ship, and I get the pleasure of being kin with one of the people in it, and it's two women, and they've got kind of a knight princess thing going on, and their autistic ADHD solidarity. Like, I've never felt this way about a ship before. I feel it like an ache in my heart. Like I need to be constantly making and consuming art of them, or I will wither and die. Please help. I have gone through the AO3 tag so many times. I'm on my 4th run through. Save me. In conclusion, FranMaya is a very interesting ship, existing in a kind of paradoxical realm where it is simultaneously mainstream and severely underloved. Its roots and foundations lie in the hypothetical of it, hints and nudges that the canon leaves for us to do with what we please. But really, isn't that how all of Ace Attorney is? When I look at Ace Attorney as a whole and how lush with creative fan works the fandom is, I can so easily pinpoint that to one single factor. Ace Attorney is a series where we only see the characters at their jobs. Sure, they give us plenty of material about their innermost feelings, their traumas, their relationships, but those are always just little nuggets left behind. We're always barreling down the highway toward trial, toward another investigation, toward figuring out who done it. These cases are the catalyst for characters to express their stories and emotions, but we never see them when they're off the clock, and this is why the fandom is so eager to fill in the blanks. FranMaya is one of the natural ends to that. What do we have of Maya and Franziska in canon? Very little. But when has that ever stopped the Ace Attorney fandom before? This is a face reveal, I guess. I know, I'm sorry. I wanted to film the end segment, because I needed to I need to show you guys. This is my FranMaya Itabag. Now you'll notice there's like an influx of Maya. That's because I pick favorites. So it started as theoretically a FranMaya Itabag, and it has now become just a Maya bag. Now I do have the meme plushie, the Kandii that she's wearing that says FranMaya. That was made by my friend Caroline. I ran out of room for rubber stamps inside, so I had to start attaching them to the outside. This is the Gatewater Honeymoon Sweet Key from the Lawfully Wedded Ace Attorney zine. It's the wedding zine. I do have the Fanciful plushies. Now Maya, I put her through the wash and her beads fell apart, so they're hot glued. This is like a mixture of both official and fan merch. That's official, that's official. Meep did the button there. Those are some Etsy buttons. A lot of the like keychains are fan made. The enamel pin is from the FranMaya zine, and then so is the heart button pin. And then I've also got this fucking like Etsy pin of them holding hands. Oh, from the Lawfully Wedded zine, I've got the fucking bouquet charm of them. And this little Maya up here is from Turnabout Tarot, which is like the fucking tarot card Ace Attorney deck. And I just take that outside with me. I just take it places. And I usually wear headphones because straight men try to hit on me a lot, and I don't want to talk to them. But every so often I don't wear the headphones, and wouldn't you know it, I get compliments every time. I once had a girl just scream Maya at me and run at me full force, and I was like, "Are you on social media?" And she was like, "No, I don't do that." And I was like, "Congratulations, you are happier than me." This is, I can't show this on YouTube, but this is The Art of Disrepair. It's why am I so close to the camera? It is a strictly NSFW FranMaya zine. It's all porn, and I really like it. It's quite good. This is my phone case. I did not ask this artist permission, but their name is on screen right now, and you should be better than me. Now, my phone is what I'm using to record right now, as you can probably tell from the shit mic quality, but this is the case, and it does have Maya. What, man? This is my laptop. So this is where I write all of the fan fiction that you have probably not read, because I only write one genre and it gets very tiresome very fast. These are all fan art except for like this anime Maya here. That's another meep. All of these are from Redbubble. That one's from the FranMaya zine. That one's from the FranMaya zine. Some of these little guys here are from the FranMaya zine. Actually, I got permission from this artist to use this art in this video, and I was like, oh shit, I have a sticker of that on my laptop. Their name is at the bottom of the screen right now. Everyone else is just selling their shit on Redbubble. I will link to all of it. I got shit on the back too. There's a little snot emote because I only write sick fic. It's like a whole thing, and it's just, there's a lot of shit happening. These are my FranMaya coasters. These are from the Capcom Cafe, and they're like blind bags. They're kind of dirty because I actually use them. If you have eyes and a brain, you might notice that this is my icon on YouTube and on AO3. But I couldn't find the image online. I found a clunky low-res version of it, and so I went into Paint Tool Sci and I traced the whole thing so that I could have it in high res, so that I could make it an icon, and eventually, hopefully, a pop socket on my phone. So we are just, like, what level is this at? This is lavender blue. It is the FranMaya zine, okay? It is the FranMaya zine. Meep did the cover. I didn't use any of Meep's art in this video because I didn't get permission, but I'm just free promo for Meep, okay? Because literally my favorite, I love you all, but like Meep is like the monarch when it comes to Maya. This is the FranMaya zine. It is like the first strictly FranMaya zine that I know of. It's very cute. And as soon as this got announced and the interest check started, my cat's on the counter. Get the fuck. As soon as this zine got announced, I was like, it is now my life's mission to be in this zine, and if I'm not going to be in it, I will at least buy 10 million copies of it. I didn't care. I really didn't, if I made it or not. But it doesn't fucking matter, because I did! That's me! Motherfucker! So anyways, I hope you enjoyed my video. Thank you to all of the artists who allowed me the use of their art. Credits for those are obviously on screen and in the description. Please go give those artists some love. A lot of them have commissions linked or their Ko-fi page linked. I would really appreciate it if you would give them money. I don't make any money off of YouTube, and I'm not really paying anyone because I'm broke as shit and I can barely afford this apartment. What do you have in your mouth? What is that? Hey, hey. I have wanted to make this video for a very long time. It is about one of my favorite things in the entire world. So I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that it was as good as all the other ones I've made. And if it wasn't, then unsubscribe, coward. Why the fuck are you mad about it? Really important thing when you're cracking a whip is that you need to have eye protection, you need to have arm protection, you need to be protected. Don't dress like a goth version of Jessie from Team Rocket when you're cracking a whip. You want to really make sure that you protect yourself, because otherwise you could hurt yourself, and nobody wants that, as I'm sure we're all aware. I hate it when she does that pose where she's like, Phoenix Heights. I hate that. Why does she's gonna, the leather, you're gonna stretch it. Like, she better go home after court and just like saddle soap. My girlfriend got me this one for my birthday last year. She's like, I got you a present, and I picked up came in like one of those like bubble mailers, and I was like, wow, What's this thing that feels exactly like a whip? Wonder what it could be. It was a whip. What's your opinion on FranMaya? Did this video change your perspective? And what is your favorite Ace Attorney ship and why? Tell me in the comments! I can't reply to them all, but I will read them all, I promise. Thanks for watching my video. Bye! Subscribe! Great job, Wendy. You're beautiful.